You're not going to get Nate Diaz to stop smoking. Nate Diaz smokes. It's like telling a giraffe not to have a long neck. You know what I mean? Nate Diaz is going to smoke.
Let me tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting. Shout out to Inside Fighting.
Welcome back to the Fight SZN Podcast. It's me, Jesse Rowe, with Inside Fighting, and joined, as always, by Timothy James, our head writer. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm great, man, and it's not just me in the house. We are joined by the one, the only, the illustrious Andrew Capucetti, lighting up a blunt, as always. We got Jesse Rowe, our editor-in-chief, Andrew Capucetti, our man in the field. What's up, boys?
Man, this looks amateurish. I can't even hit my vape correctly.
Oh, no.
Not even funny. This is a vape, and it's just like not, and it's all charged up. I don't know, but
We called it a blunt. Here, I'll hit my PAX pen for you.
oh, see.
Have you ever used the PAX vape?
That's what it is. It's the vape. Oh, no, you're talking
No.
about the one that actually vapes the flower?
Yeah, I have one of those. It's in
I've
New York.
never tried it. I've never tried it.
It's awesome. I love that thing.
Timmy's in Brazil. How hard is it to get your PAX pen or your vape pens or anything in Brazil?
Everything, like technology-wise, like if I wanted to buy a PAX here, it'd probably be double, triple the price. If I wanted to bring it on the plane, as long as I cleaned it first, it should be okay. But I just left it in New York just because.
You should do that. Well, listen, you know, I know you're Brazil. You're the biggest fan of Brazilian fighters. You know, Brazilian fighters are always legendary fighters, but big heavyweight going tomorrow, Almeida. You know, we'll get to what's his first name again?
Really quick,
Jailton.
is weed legal in Brazil? It's not legal, right?
Not legal.
It's not legal, but it's not enforced.
You know where it's also
there's always kids smoking outside and shit. No one stops them.
Gotcha. You know where it's also not legal, but it's been decriminalized, but it's also not legal is Dallas, Texas, where the Nate Diaz Jake Paul presser just took place, and Cap was on the scene. How was it, Cap? What were the vibes like over there?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I think the press conference went well. It was fucking, everyone was talking about it. I think it was a good press conference, you know. Nate and Jake were definitely, you know, I don't think Jake was acting like he wasn't happy with it, but I think after he you know, soaked in or mused on it for a day, I think after 24 hours, he probably felt better about it. Because I know directly after the press conference, he was expecting, I talked to him and he was saying he expected Nate to you know, maybe talk a little more shit. But like Nate has said previously, and he just said recently, he's not a monkey. He's not like a monkey in a zoo.
Right.
In a circus, you could just make dance. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to put on a show unnaturally or unorganically just to put on a show. He's going to, if it happens organically and someone's talking shit, he's going to put them in check, but he's not going to force the issue. Where, you know, the Gen Z and these YouTube influencers, they like to force and force, you know,
Fake
media
drama and fake beef and everything.
Yeah. But
that's why people love Nate Diaz.
Yeah,
because he keeps it real.
He was like that for the Connor pressers too. If you go back and look at those old Connor pressers, he was kind of this. Connor kind of didn't know what to do because Nate was just like, he was the one guy that was kind of like foolproof to all of Connor's shit talking and mind games and everything. So,
yeah, because Nate's actually a really nice guy. You know, sometimes people might think the opposite, but he's actually very classy, nice, and as long as you don't talk shit about him, he ain't gonna talk shit about you. He shows a lot of respect. He's like old school mindset. You know, been doing MMA 20 plus years, so. In the MMA community, they teach respect, and he's very old school. He shows a lot of respect until you disrespect, and then, like the one guy from Better Media, that guy who was being a jackass. You know what I mean?
And that guy, he does he work for Jake Paul? Because Jake Paul was like, "Hey, shut the fuck up."
He works for Better. He's one of their picks guys. He sort of became like a little bit of a star for them, like kind of just randomly just being funny on I think he's like an internet troll who kind of just they put on camera, and now he's like part of their gambling show on the Better app. So he does like fight picks.
I think it was staged though. It was definitely probably staged, and but you know, I like Jake Paul, you know, but that's just the generation they're in. They like to do those type of pranks. And Jake Paul and him probably had a meeting before the press conference, said, "Hey, ask this crazy disrespectful question about Nick Diaz." But But that was cool that Drake chimed in on it, and Drake was
That's right.
saying that this is a weak generation. So he's kind of right. Like we're in a generation where people are just clout chasing clicks and views, and it worked. The kid Derek from Better Media got exactly what that shit went viral.
100%.
It was on every blog. Yeah. It was super viral. So
that's why I didn't know why Jake was like saying that about how he was expecting more from Nate or whatever. I think actually the press conference went like perfectly. It was all like social media was
exactly
all over it. It got tons of clicks. It was popping. It was great.
Yeah, I think Jake felt down about it after. Like, I interviewed him. He was saying that, but you've been working in media 15 years with TMZ, Jesse. I was at TMZ 10 years, media. Like we've been in the media game. That shit was popping. It was all over social media. Everyone's
it was a very successful press conference. Yeah.
As a diehard MMA fan, you're a hardcore MMA resident here at Inside Fighting. What did you make of the presser? Did you like it, or you were good off it, or?
There were two impressions I got from the press conference. The first is that our man in the field, our executive producer, Andrew Capucetti, asked the best questions in the game. I thought it was very cool. You brought up your interview with McGregor, bringing up McGregor's opinion about how
I have something to say about that. Go ahead.
And the second thing is that I was a little surprised that Jake kept it tame. And we saw in the interview after, he said he looked a little disappointed. He said he was a little disappointed. But it was also like Nate was Nate, and that's why Nate's one of the biggest stars. Like people love Nate because he keeps it real. He's the guy. He's the man. He's always been that way. Nate Diaz 20 years ago is the same as Nate Diaz today. He's just a real motherfucker, and that's why people love him. Jake, I sort of expected him to do a little bit more. Maybe that's why he did the thing with the better guy. Maybe he's like, I don't want to step out of line, because you can tell he has a lot of respect for Nate.
Yeah.
So maybe he was like, I don't want to step out of line, but I still kind of want to make it a little crazy. So you do it. He pushed it to his lackey or something. But
that's actually a good point. Cool. I didn't even think of it that way, because Jake, he always kind of has his little moments at pressers where he makes a bet with his opponent, like, oh, I'm going to make some sort of bet to try to have a viral moment. But maybe he did kind of like push that onto his employee.
Yeah,
he's probably saving something for down the road, but.
Well, Jake brought the monkey out, and he was slapping the monkey hands, and he says, "This is what's going on." And Nate's
right.
Nate's one of my best friends, but that wasn't Jake's best performance.
Yeah, but I do want to say really quick about that Conor video. Cap, you asked about that at the press conference. You asked about Conor saying that Nate's going to slap Jake's head off. That clip got a bump from that moment. When you asked about it, that topic became trending on Google Trends. It got a huge bump. It went up by like 200% or something. So
okay, nice.
Yeah, so that was awesome. But Nate, obviously it's a weekend of stars with Nate and Jake Paul, but those two guys weren't even the biggest stars of the weekend, in my opinion. Nate wasn't even the biggest star in his own crew, in my opinion, because he brought a new bodyguard, this dude Richard. And everybody fucking loves Richard. He just was like the star of the weekend. Nate's first official bodyguard after the New Orleans fiasco. So Cap, you got a chance to talk to him. What's Richard like? It was a great interview. What was the vibe like with him?
I hate to always correct my coworker here, but you keep saying the weekend. It was a week.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday.
You're right. I don't know why I said that.
We're just entering the weekend right now.
Yeah. Time is discombobulated when you do this long enough. Days blend together.
Right. No, but Rich is a big star. Big Rich is on the scene, and he means business.
Yeah.
They're not very nice guy. Most big guys are nice. You ever meet assholes in life? They're typically like little weasels. But Big Rich is like 5'11", 290, 295, yoked out, and he's a very nice guy. So. But he was a big star. We interviewed him, and that went viral, 100K views, because he's Nate Diaz's first official bodyguard. So
it was the best piece of content we shot over the weekend in terms of views.
He's probably the first bodyguard in history who was hired to protect the other people who try to fuck with his client. Right. He's there to protect the other guy. He's there to protect the Logan.
That's a great point, Timmy. That's hilarious. That's a really good point.
So you're saying Big Rich is there not to protect Nate Diaz, but protect the aggressors.
Yeah, anyone who tries to come up and mess with Nate, Rich is there to make sure that Nate doesn't hurt him.
That's funny. But yeah, no, he was cool, and he's a wrestler because I know that he said that he was a football player, he was a linebacker in high school and stuff, but he was also a wrestler.
Yeah. Well, anyone could play football, as we all know. You strap on a padded helmets and run the ball. It takes no brain cells, zero brain cells to play football.
Ooh, shots fired.
Shots fired. It's facts.
NFL fans in the chat, we're sorry.
but anyways, no, football's cool. But yeah, the main point, his main attribute is that he was a high school state placer in wrestling. And if you know high school wrestling, if you know wrestling at all, the top 3 states to wrestle in is California, Pennsylvania, and maybe like in Ohio or Iowa. But California has like the toughest high school wrestling. And this guy, Nate Diaz's bodyguard, Big Rich, was a state placer at 215 pounds. So I think he took 5th at 215. So it's very hard. Like I wrestled in high school. I didn't even make it to the state tournament. And then I went to junior college and I ended up placing in state. But it's very hard to even make it to the state tournament. So this guy placed. So Nate Diaz has a beast working for him as a bodyguard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrestle Big Rich soon, as a matter of fact. And
you gotta get that on
make
video,
sure you
bro.
film it. We gotta get it on we need to see the tape.
I'll let you guys know how it goes. But yeah, no, that's satisfied. Big Rich is a big, humble guy. And Nate was already safe because he rolls with a team of 10 highly skilled martial artists at all times, 5 to 10. Sometimes he rolls solo. But, Nate can protect himself. This is, like Timmy said, more to protect the fans.
Speaking of fans, a lot was made about the fact that there were no fans in the arena for the press conference. But, like, I think that was just because it was the first one. Like, what was the overall, like, in terms of how it all went? Like, did you get the feeling that it was I don't know, did you get the feeling like everybody was excited to be there? Because I did as I was watching it. It's something like I noticed in my head. I was like, the media seems to really be like enjoying this event just because it was so unique. I don't know. That's my take on it.
I know Nate didn't like that there's no fans in the arena. I thought it was fine. I've had a change of heart. At first, I didn't like it either. But now when I think about it, I kind of like no fans because it doesn't give them an opportunity to be completely fucking obnoxious where they start yelling crazy shit all the time. I know a lot of people like that. I don't really like that sometimes. It's like, yo, just sit down, enjoy the show, and they're always screaming. Like, you should see some of these MMA fans. It's grown. Sometimes it'll be a grown 30-year-old just screaming their head out.
Yep.
That's probably Timmy James. I want to see Timmy James at a press conference. Not just fucking with him.
Yeah. No, I come out with the Just Bleed. I got the signs ready to go. But,
I can't imagine Timmy being disrespectful at a press conference.
No,
I can't imagine it.
No, I didn't mean disrespectful.
I think it's good. Fans for this first one. For the first couple ones, when you want fans, make the last press conference right before the fight. That's when people get hyped up. That's when you can have like crazy people. But now when it's just the media, you get to hear the story. I liked it.
You rolled around with the NDA team over the weekend. Over the week, I said weekend again. And they rolled back to Stockton yesterday. They flew out. You got a chance to talk to Nate on the runway of the plane, and he kind of had like the quote of all quotes. One of my favorite quotes so far is you asked him if he started his training camp with Jake Paul, and he said, my whole life is a training camp.
For Jake Paul.
For Jake Paul. And he said, my whole life is a training camp. And he's like the one guy that could say that where I'm like, oh, that's facts right there. That is facts.
Well, you believe him.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of guys say stuff like that, and it's not really true. Like, Nate, I believe it.
It's like if I told you I worked out every single day, you wouldn't believe it.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. I would have believed it to 10, 15 years ago when you were a state placer.
No, but so when Nate says his life is a training camp, it's facts.
Yeah.
The guy stays running every single day. He's in shape. Good cardio. Well, that's what people already know that. But what's up, Tim?
You guys think this fight is going to be competitive, or is Nate just going to roll right through him?
Oh, I definitely think it's going to be competitive. Jake Paul is no slouch. You know what I mean? The former high school wrestler himself, Jake Paul. 6-1 as a boxer. He's faced the likes of, former champions in the UFC and undefeated Tommy Fury. So yeah, Jake Paul's no slouch. I do see Nate end up winning the fight. Nate will probably get him out of there in, the last round or late rounds, but it's not going to be easy. Jake Paul's a monster. You see his training footage, the guy hits hard.
Yeah. I think I saw a quote from Nate, and it was like, if you can't get me around, he wants it to go 12 rounds because he really believes in his cardio and his ability to go deep into fights. And his whole point was, Jake's probably got the power edge. And if you can't get me out in the first 5 rounds, then I'm going to start picking you apart. And I actually think that's true. So I think that's why Jake doesn't want it to go 12 rounds probably. But I think Nate, it's going to be close, but I think Nate will have the volume punching, as Cap loves when I love mentioning the volume punching of Nate Diaz.
Yeah, Nate would definitely have volume punching.
Yeah.
Well, I hope the fight's not at risk, because apparently the Vada commission didn't give Nate Diaz his weed exemption. You were there. You interviewed Nate, Cap. I think it was right after the press conference or right before the press conference.
After.
And it was after, yeah. And his rep said something like, "We're going to get an exemption from the Texas commission." Apparently, they denied his exemption. So, he said he had a lot of THC in his system. I wonder how that's going to affect the fight. I hope it doesn't affect the fight. I hope we're not looking at one of those situations where, they changed the John Jones fight from Vegas to California in the last second because he pissed hot. What do you guys make of that?
Well, I'll be brief about it, but what I make of it is I think that Texas needs to get with the times. We're in 2023, update their rules. Weed is not a performance enhancer. If the guy wants to smoke, let him smoke. If whoever wants to smoke, let him smoke. Not a big deal. But I do think they'll be able to work it out because this fight is being put on by Real Fight Inc. and Most Valuable Promotions. You got Nikisa with MVP. You got Zach Rosenfield with Real Fight Inc. Two brilliant guys. I think they'll be able to figure out some type of deal. You're not going to get Nate Diaz to stop smoking. Nate Diaz smokes. It's like telling a giraffe not to have a long neck. You know what I mean? Nate Diaz is going to smoke. Yeah. So I hope it stays in Dallas, but Dallas and Texas, the commission, they would be fools to allow this fight to slip away to another state just because they don't want to let, Nate be great. But yeah.
Yeah, I know that it's been decriminalized in Dallas or in Texas. I think I saw some comments about that. I haven't looked it up. I could be totally wrong, but I believe it's been decriminalized, but for Vada, it might be a whole different story. So
what do you think, Timmy?
I hope the fight still happens in Dallas. I don't want it to, I don't want there to be a mess. Maybe the fight gets pushed back. I hope none of that happens. And I completely agree that they need to get with the times. They're penalizing athletes for weed. It's ridiculous. The NFL doesn't do this anymore. I think the MLB recently changed. I might be wrong about that. Actually, MLB is a little bit slower on these stuff, but it's not a performance enhancer. If anything, it's a performance dehancer, right? So,
yeah.
There's no reason not to allow it. And everyone knows who Nate Diaz is. So it's like, why are they doing this?
Sorry, go ahead, Cap.
No, I was just going to say we got 84 days to break down this fight, though. And let's talk about tomorrow's UFC Fight Night in Charlotte.
Well, I was going to say somebody else who loves to smoke weed is Daniel Rodriguez, and he's fighting on the UFC Charlotte card against Ian Gary. And I'm really stoked for that fight. I'm excited to talk about it and break it down. So Timmy, let's do a little quick impromptu how to fuck up your parlay. Let's talk about the betting odds. Let's see what's going on.
Right. So Ian Gary is finally getting his biggest test. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity for him going to get up against Daniel Rodriguez, who is 17-3, who comes into the fight as a plus 250 underdog. Ian Gary is a minus 300 favorite. The kid is undefeated, 11-0. D-Rod is coming off a loss. He was submitted by Neil Magny. But Ian Gary's known for his boxing. D-Rod's never been knocked out. Obviously, the UFC views this kid as a star with some star power. He's diet Conor McGregor or whatever. Everyone makes that comparison because he's Irish. But the thing that I think about is that Gary's been rocked in every single fight he's been in. He almost got knocked out in his last fight. He's been rocked at least once in every other UFC fight. So that's something to think about. So what do you guys think? D-Rod plus 250, Gary minus 300.
This one's easy for me. You know what I mean? I like Irish fighters. Respect to Ian Gary. He's good. And I think he has a bright future. And he's kind of a funny guy, too. He's on some funny shit. He's tall. He's lanky. He's athletic. I like Ian Gary. But D-Rod's my boy. I never go against my boys. You know what I mean? Like, and D-Rod is a scrapper. And I don't think, to be honest, completely honest, I don't think Ian Gary's at D-Rod's level yet. I think Ian Gary has a bright future, but D-Rod's time is now. And you want to make some good money, plus 250 on D-Rod sounds like easy money. So D-Rod all day.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ian Gary getting rocked. He didn't just get rocked in his last fight. I forget who he was fighting. He was almost out in the first round. I mean, he was like out on his feet for like a split second. And I actually went back before we recorded this. I went back and I watched the Neil Magny fight. Between Daniel Rodriguez and Neil Magny. And Rodriguez, I think the first round you could say that Magny probably won, but the second round, Rodriguez was piecing him up. I mean, piecing up Magny, hitting him with a bunch of good stuff, like headshot to body shot, just doing a lot of great boxing. And I think he just kind of had like a bit of a brain fart a little bit in that third round where he got up off the ground when he had Magny hurt on the ground. He decides to get up and get back on the feet. Magny ends up submitting him, getting his bearings and submitting him. I think that these odds are crazy, to be honest. I do think Gary is a good fighter. I wouldn't touch that. I would absolutely put down money on Rodriguez to win just because the odds are so good on a guy who's a veteran and who's shown in the past that he can beat really good world-class fighters. So I would take the odds on Rodriguez.
Very nice. I think that Rodriguez, I see scenarios where both guys can win. I think Gary, he's a little bit faster, a little bit slicker with his boxing, but D-Rod can knock him out. If you want to get him on the line and give him some advice, I would say look for a check left hook, look for a counter check left hook. You can call up D-Rod and tell him that Coach Timmy Shoes gave him that advice. Because Gary gets countered, and he usually gets countered with a check left hook. But I think
let's go. I like that analysis. All right, I'm going to text D-Rod, check left hook. Not just kidding.
Yep.
Well, no, maybe.
Counter check left hook. Well, while Gary's throwing combinations, D-Rod needs to throw with him and counter him. So I see a scenario where they can both win, but I agree that the odds are kind of crazy. I think Gary might probably win the decision. I don't think he's going to knock D-Rod out. He's not going to threaten him on the ground. So
who's your pick, bro? Give me a pick. Long-winded as fuck. Give me your pick, Gary.
Yeah, Ian Gary by decision.
Who we got in the co-main?
In the co-main, we have got Anthony Smith versus Johnny Walker. These are two guys in the top of the light heavyweight division, looking to make some noise. Both guys are 3-2 in their last fight, but Smith is coming off a loss. He lost to Magomed Ankalaev. That's the fight where his leg got messed up. And Johnny Walker is coming off back-to-back wins over Ion Cutelaba and Paul Craig. And they're even money on the odds. They're both minus 110 favorites. So obviously Vegas thinks that both of these guys have a good shot. What do you guys make of the fight?
I'll go first. I really like Johnny Walker. And I just am, if I'm looking at the two guys' trajectories, obviously Walker's a veteran as well, but I just think Walker has shown some improvements. He really dominated Paul Craig in the last fight. I like Johnny Walker's athleticism and size. I just think he's too big. Like I think Walker could legitimately fight at heavyweight. So yeah, I like Walker in this fight. I'll take him. I think he's gonna knock Smith out, to be honest. If I were to put money on a KO on this card, other than perhaps the main event, it would be Johnny Walker.
Nice. What about you, Cap? How do you see this fight playing out?
Respect to both fighters, but I think Anthony Smith is on to his analyst days, and Johnny Walker, 2-fight win streak. Even though I still can't, get over Johnny Walker leaving the T-Mobile Arena in his underwear and his fight trunks 2 fights ago. I don't know what that was about. It makes me question the guy's decision-making process. But I will, Anthony Smith is probably a more sharp thinker in the cage, but I just think that Johnny Walker's youth and athleticism and size, Johnny Walker has other things going on in his career right now as far as broadcasting fights. I think once you start taking your focus off purely fighting and you're starting, trying to direct your focuses to other spots, I think that takes away from your fight game. I really think that. But anyways, Johnny Walker. Give me Johnny.
I love Anthony Smith. He's doing good things on the Believe You Me podcast with Michael Bisping. They make a good team. He's a great analyst.
Facts.
But I don't think he's ever gonna, be championship material at this point in his career. I like Johnny Walker by TKO. Now,
TKO.
TKO. I think he's gonna land a big knee. Look for a knee in that fight.
I agree.
Now, we got heavyweights in the main event with some crazy odds. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, he is 13-4, is a plus 400 underdog against Jailton Almeida, who is 18-2 and minus 500. So obviously Almeida is a massive favorite. He comes into the fight on a 13-fight winning streak, which is kind of crazy. He beat Shamil Abdurakhimov at UFC 283. I was there. I saw it. It was great. He's the Brazilian Khabib. He even said, I'm a big fan of Khabib in the post-fight press conference. So what do you guys make of this fight?
Whenever I tell people to bet the house, I'm undefeated. And, I only say this when I'm 100% sure. Bet your whole life, everything you're worth on Almeida. Almeida? What do you say? Almeida. The guy's a monster. It's going to be him versus Palpovich for a heavyweight title in about a year. They're both crazy beast. So everything you're worth, because he's minus 525. So in order to make money, you got to literally put everything. Borrow some money, hit everyone up, do a group betting thing. Everyone put 100 to 500,000 on Almeida, and take your it's a free 50 to 75K. This guy's gonna win. Mark my words. I'm undefeated when I tell you to bet the house.
Rosenstrike is also a plus 35 or 40 in terms of weight. He's 40 pounds or 35 pounds heavier than Almeida going into this fight. I don't think it's going to help him. I think Almeida is probably going to dance around him. I'm taking Almeida, and I'm probably not touching this one on its own because it would just be too much risk, but I am going to take Almeida regardless.
Oh, yeah, Cap is right. Almeida's got this all the way, but Jesse's also right because this is a heavyweight fight. All it takes is one. Rosenstrike is a kickboxer, so some sort of fluke knockout definitely possible. But otherwise, I think Jailton Almeida is going to wrestle this fight, get the submission. He's going to make it look easy, probably.
Don't tell me. Well, listen, as you guys know, if you guys are watching all the podcasts going months back, Timmy Shoes never picks against a Brazilian because he's live from Brazil.
And live from Brazil, baby.
I already know when there's a Brazil fighter fighting, Timmy Shoes has got their back. He's a loyal countryman there. Anyways, listen, you thought this episode was fire. Wait till you see who we got on next episode. You don't know who the fuck we're going to have on. It's always some crazy, you know what I mean? So,
stay tuned.
No, don't.
Only big thing that inside fighting.
There's a lot of things.
You gotta follow us.
Stay tuned. Find us on. One of the cheesiest takes, and I hate who likes to say that during interviews. Like, oh, stay tuned. So you ask someone a question and be like, stay tuned. Stay tuned line.
It's true. It's always like it's always a way to get out of that answering the question too.
Yeah, and it's also just like
right. You're right. You're right.
Not want to stay tuned.
Let me tell you something about Andrew. This is my boy right here. You disrespect him, you're disrespecting me.
Inside fighting, shout out to inside fighting.